and Chinese. These are two of the world's most widely spoken languages and the official languages of two of the most important political players on the world stage, whatever your opinion of them might be. And they are the languages we speak at home with our two children as a trilingual family living in England. Who better to put these two languages to the ultimate test to see which one is the hardest of them all? This contest will consist of 3 rounds. We'll judge each language based on pronunciation, grammar, and writing and see which one comes out on top before hearing my kids' verdict. Let's go!
Round 1. Pronunciation.
Ma, 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 ma. Spot the difference. According to my husband, whose ear has been stepped on by a bear, which is, by the way, the Russian idiom for someone who is tone deaf, there's literally no difference. But ma, 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 ma mean completely different things. Ma, mummy. Ma, flax, the plant. Ma, a horse. Ma, to scold. And if you're buying and selling stocks, you better make sure you don't mix up 买和卖, which mean to buy and to sell. Before the children were born, I was a professional Mandarin teacher and helped dozens of students learn Chinese. 99.9% of them struggled with the sounds 知吃诗 zi ci si, ji qi xi. And you know what? The shocking thing is that even actual Chinese people struggle with these sounds. Lots of people from southern China, for example, pronounce 知吃诗 more or less as zi ci si when they speak. That includes me, by the way, although I really make an effort to pronounce things properly. And as for Q and X, these letters are just mega confusing to most people. Q is pronounced qi and X is pronounced xi. Funny anecdote. Apple Dictation cannot pronounce the name of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Every time I listen to a news article containing his name with Apple Dictation on, the computer would say, President 11 Jinping. Come on, Apple, you can do better than this. Okay, so Chinese pronunciation is challenging. What about Russian? I challenge you to pronounce this word, which I think means to sprinkle. Vzbriznut. Vzbriznut. Vzbriznut? Damn, I can't do it. It's consonant galore, and that's the case with tons of Russian words. There are just way too many consonants and not quite enough vowels. It's like my tongue can't physically make those sounds. I'm sure if I practice enough, I will be able to, but well, you get my point. I challenge you to say another word, which means a landmark or a tourist attraction. Dostoprimečatenost. Dostoprimečatenost is 7 syllables long, super hard to pronounce, versus the equivalent in Chinese, which is 名胜, which has only 2 syllables. Or you can be really fancy and say 名胜古迹, which only has 4 syllables. So the winner of this round is a tie! Round 2, grammar. For the first year or two after meeting my husband, I actually made considerable effort to learn Russian. And I remember how one day I uploaded a picture of my cat on Facebook, back when Facebook was still a thing, and I proudly wrote my first ever Russian sentence underneath their photo. Я люблю моя кошка, or I love my cat. Wow, I was so proud of myself, waiting for all the likes to flood in, but the first comment someone made was, sorry, it should be Я люблю мою кошку, or even better, Я люблю свою кошку. So yeah, basically for a simple 4-word sentence like this, I still managed to screw up 2 words. Half the sentence was grammatically incorrect. And that brings me to the number 1 bugbear I have when it comes to learning Russian. The dreaded cases or падежи in Russian. Honestly, it's so intimidating that it feels like something invented simply to torture learners. By the way, a book I read a long time ago titled The Unfolding of Language, The Evolution of Mankind's Greatest Invention by Guy Deutscher actually offers an intriguing explanation for the evolution of grammatical cases in Indo-European languages. Well worth a read if you're interested in languages, but in any case, for learners of Russian, падежи is a total pain in the... What it means is that every time you use a noun, you have to know which case to use. Oh, and it applies to adjectives too. And numbers. Essentially, the potential for mistakes is just enormous. Of course, people will in real life, people will, in 99% of cases, no pun intended, still understand you, but your sentence will still officially be wrong. And that's just nouns and adjectives. There is, of course, verb Let's take as an example the sentence,
I love you.
In Chinese, the verb love is ai, and it's always the same. 我爱, I love, 你爱, you love, 他爱, he or she loves, 他们爱. It's the same word, ai. But in Russian, for the word любить, which means to love, we've got я люблю, ты любишь, он любит, она любит, мы любим, они любят, and that's just in the present tense. But honestly, that's not even the worst. For me, one of the craziest things about Russian is verbs of motion. If you want to say you want to go somewhere, you can't just use the word go. You have to consider whether you're going there on foot, by some kind of transport, whether it's just one way or if it's a habit, and so on and so forth. It's a total minefield. In Chinese, the word to would cover most bases. So yes, verbs of motion in Russian are, in my opinion, totally mad. On the other hand, while Chinese grammar doesn't have nearly as many rules, this fluidity can also be confusing. My husband, for example, just can't wrap his head around the idea that there is no singular or plural in Chinese. So if I say, 昨天我去看朋友了, you won't know if I went to see a friend or multiple friends. I can of course specify that it's 朋友们, which clarifies that it's a group of friends, but 朋友 itself in that sentence can be singular or plural. As a Chinese to English translator, this can genuinely present a problem. Also, Chinese sentence structure is often ambiguous. The subject is often omitted, which again can be a headache if you're a translator like me, or if you're just learning the language. Another weird feature about Chinese is something called measure words. You know how in English you would say something like a piece of paper, a stack of paper. The words piece or stack is the measure word, right? In Chinese, you need a measure word for everything, and it can be quite arbitrary. Like you have to use the measure word 头 for cows, 一头牛, but the correct measure word for horses is 匹, 一匹马. Even though both are, like farmyard animals. So in my humble opinion, the winner of this round is Russian!
Yay!
Round 3, writing system. Let's start with Russian, shall we? The Russian alphabet is based on the Cyrillic alphabet and has 33 letters compared to 26 in English. It looks intimidating at first, but can actually be learned fairly quickly. It took me 1 hour at the age of 23 to learn the Russian alphabet with my husband as the teacher. And trust me when I say he's not the world's best teacher. Just as with English, once you know the alphabet, you can spell any Russian word with these letters. Russian also has the advantage of being fairly phonetic. For the most part, you won't be too far off the mark if you read out each syllable as you see it. Of course, the sounds can be insanely hard to pronounce, as I discussed in round 1, but in theory, you can read out any Russian word once you know the alphabet, even if you have no idea what a word means. In contrast, the Chinese writing system is a totally different beast. According to the Chinese government's guidelines, you need to know around 3,000 characters in order to be literate. Each one of these characters is unique and has to be learned and memorized independently. Take a look at this character here. Any idea how to pronounce it? Unlike alphabetic languages, where spelling can provide clues to pronunciation, Chinese characters often give no indication of how they should be pronounced. This means learners must memorize both the written form and the pronunciation separately. In this case, this character you see here is pronounced to, and it means to steal. Yeah, not easy to guess. For this reason, while our children learn phonics at school to help them read English, this simply doesn't work in Chinese. Sure, you can help them with pinyin, which is a way of spelling Chinese words using Roman letters. But the goal is always to be able to read without pinyin, because otherwise you won't really be able to function in real life in a Chinese-speaking environment. In short, the winner of round 3 is Chinese!
Yay!
So the final result is a draw. But that's not the whole story. The surprising truth is this. Which language is harder totally depends on you, the learner. The thing is, no language is inherently more difficult than another. The perceived difficulty of a language primarily depends on your native language. For example, while mastering the grammatical cases падежи in Russian feels like climbing Mount Everest to me, it might be a slightly tiring but very manageable jog around Hyde Park. If you are Serbian, for instance, or anyone who speaks a Slavic language. Similarly, while tones are extremely difficult for speakers of European languages to master, someone who speaks a tonal language like Vietnamese might have an easier ride. Even the infamous Chinese writing system might not be equally difficult for everyone in the world. If you can read and write Japanese, you already know roughly 60 to 70% of Chinese characters. Okay, before some of you start roasting me, of course, I'm massively simplifying things here, but there is a really substantial overlap between the two writing systems, at least when it comes to Japanese kanji and Chinese hanzi. Japanese actually has 2 additional alphabets, so it's arguably the most difficult writing system in the world with 3 alphabets. But that's a whole different topic. Okay, before we wrap up, let's hear my kids' verdict.
Are you ready? Okay, Alina, which one is harder, Russian or Chinese? Which one?
Russian.
Which one do you think is harder, Russian or Chinese?
Don't know.
So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Check out my video where I reveal how we raise our kids to be trilingual, and another video where I reveal 5 brutal truths of living as a multilingual family.